Welcome back to Cinematic. I'm Ryan. I'm making my way through just a whole bunch of Hong Kong action movies. And currently, I've been going backwards, which is normal for me, but I was leaving John Woo and Ringo Lam off the list, so I'm repenting of that somewhat. We did Last Hurrah for Chivalry. We did Aces Go Places 4, which is Ringo Lam. So we're back to John Woo this week with A Better Tomorrow. And being American, doing the things backwards, I know John Woo from his American stuff first. You know, probably, if I had to guess, Face Off was like the first thing I saw where I was like, who is this guy? And worked my way backwards to Hard Boiled eventually, which is great. And if we do watch that, it'll be with the family this time around. But I'll be honest, I had no idea that A Better Tomorrow existed until a couple weeks ago. But that's why we're here, right? We're filling in the gaps. And by all accounts, A Better Tomorrow was a huge one. This broke all of Hong Kong's box office records up to that point, basically helped launch and or define a genre in the heroic bloodshed movies that John Woo and Ringo Lam would go on to do. It inspired several remakes, which just makes it all the more fun that I've never heard of it before. There's like a Korean one, and I think there's another Hong Kong or Chinese one. But this was also inspired by some and inspired some others. So there's a whole bunch. As the story goes, apparently somewhere around Last Hurrah for Chivalry, John Woo became a bit disillusioned, if not downright depressed, about the movies he was expected to make. I guess kind of in that mold, in kind of the Shaw Brothers early Golden Harvest Wuxia mold, more or less. Because remember, he was an assistant director for Cheng Che, so he was coming out of that discipline, and apparently not super happy about it. So his friend Tsui Hark, who we talked about with Zoo Warriors from the Magic Mountain, because that's one that he directed, and we'll talk about him again when he directs the Once Upon a Time in China movies. But apparently he went up to John Woo and was like, hey, come make the movie you want to make for my production company, which was Film Workshop. But also he was a part of Cinema City and Films, which is going to be the logo you see at the top of this particular movie, which I think is interesting because that's apparently Carl Macha's production company. Carl Macha played Baldy in the Aces Go Places 4 movie that we did last week. Apparently he started a production company with Dean Sheck and Raymond Wong. But anyway, that movie that Tsui Hark invited John Woo to make ended up being A Better Tomorrow. So let me tell you what it's all about. It's about three men, two of which are brothers, which initially I thought, well, Chow Yun-fat's character, Mark, and T. Leung's character, Ho, I thought they were the brothers. They are not. Ho's brother, Kit, played by Leslie Cheung, is at the police academy training to be a police officer, while Mark and Ho are members of the Triad. So you can imagine there's going to be some conflict in the future. But Ho does want a better life, a better tomorrow even, for his brother Kit. And that like, it's very jovial at first. Like the whole thing is very happy. Like the only jobs we see at the beginning are them doing some counterfeiting stuff. So like nobody's dying necessarily, and they're laughing all the way to the bank. You know, it's the friends you make along the way of being a mobster, which I'm kind of joking, but we're doing the Heat thing, or I guess Michael Mann was doing the Better Tomorrow or Heroic Bloodshed thing when he made Heat, and showed us kind of cops and robbers with hopes and dreams and families. One of which, by the way, is Chin Fang, who plays, I recognized him immediately as Lee Kon from The Fate of Lee Kon, but he was also in the One-Armed Swordsman, Five Fingers of Death, like 165 other movies that I haven't seen. But he plays Ho and Kit's father, who tells the story of two young children that would play cops and robbers, and he's afraid that they will play that game again. He asks Ho not to play the game again. All amidst violins, you know, like the music kind of hits you over the head with this one, but honestly, the whole thing, like you're not watching a John Woo movie because you're like, it's so subtle and nuanced. Like it is in certain ways. I'm not saying that he isn't operating on several different levels here, but John Woo's operatic. Like I'm still very early on in what I've seen of his, and certainly if this is like when he really got to make what he wanted to make, it's pretty emblematic of his style. We're here for a crime opera, right? Not a low-key drama of any sort, even though it wouldn't also work if it wasn't pulling at your heartstrings, and I'm gobbling it up. So yeah, one of the reasons why I think it works is in no small measure due to Chow Yun-fat. So I thought I actually had him pegged pretty early on in the movie. I thought the movie surprised me numerous times, in fact. But Chow Yun-fat is such a kind of an affable underworlder at this point. You think he's that character that hasn't been challenged necessarily yet, or hasn't come face to face with the moral implications of his actions or something like that. But soon enough, he's going to have a choice to make, But pretty early on, there's this dinner scene where it's Chow Yun-fat, Ti Lung, and I believe Xing is the name of the character who plays kind of another upstart within the triads that they're mentoring in some way. But it serves as an ability for them for Chow Yun-fat to tell this story about when he and Ho were on a job and Ho basically saved his life. But throughout the thing, it involves like all of the emotions, and it's not short, and Chow Yun-fat nails all of it. Like, he was apparently the real deal very early on in his career, and I didn't, I'm ignorant to this type of stuff. I've seen Crouching Tiger, and I know, like, if he didn't win an award for that, where he definitely showed his chops as a dramatic actor, apparently he was doing that way early on with all his Hong Kong action stuff. Again, in this, I don't know if this is his first movie. This was not his first movie by a long shot. He did 33 movies before this, so I don't even know if that's early on in his career anymore, but very good on screen, Chow Yun-fat. So surprise number one for me for this movie. But also Ho does take his father's advice, and he's like, okay, I'll get out of it after one more job. And I'm like, oh, he's gonna die, right? He even goes around like saying goodbye to everybody in the movie. I'm like, there's no way. But nope, wrong again. The job does go bad. They go to Taiwan, he's ambushed, it's him and Xing. He's ambushed and he basically sacrifices himself so Xing can escape. And because of that, gets captured by the cops and has to serve a 3-year prison sentence. And this causes two things to happen. First off, I believe it's the triads back in China, so like Ho's boss or whatever, that send a thug out to the father's house to take him hostage so that I think Ho doesn't talk in prison or whatever, or make a deal. And basically that home invasion goes bad and the father ends up dying. But it's an extended sequence with no kung fu. And maybe that sounds obvious at this point, and I'm going to talk about this later, but A Better Tomorrow came out the same year as Millionaires Express, Martial Arts of Shaolin, Magic Crystal, Righting Wrongs, No Retreat, No Surrender, obviously, never forget. Those are just the ones I've done episodes on. There's probably thousands more, but all of them super martial arts focused, right? So the idea that they would have an extended action sequence essentially in A Better Tomorrow and just be like, no kung fu. Like there might be like one kick in it and that's it. So that obviously would have been a conscious decision, and it gets even more blatant when the second thing that the father's death brings about, or Ho's capture brings about, is that Chow Yun-fat goes to take revenge. And it's, I guess, probably, if this is like the first John Woo movie, this might be like the first John Woo sequence, it's basically Chow Yun-fat on his way to take care of this big old group of gangsters. He's kind of like slow motion dancing his way down the hall as he's hiding guns and planters and stuff like that, so that when he gets to the door and it opens it up and everybody stops and looks at him, and he just wrecks shop. As he's backing out, he takes these guns out of these planters as well, and just like, it's great. There's going to be a lot of it's great, I think, in describing this movie, because I bet while on paper, like beat for beat, I think this movie looks good, I bet it's nothing compared to what it looks like in motion. And a lot of that's in slow motion because it's a John Woo movie. But for instance, fast forward 3 years, so Ho's out of prison. Kit knows what Ho has been, what he's done, and blames him for his father's death. So they have a beautiful fist fight in the rain. But also, Chow Yun-fat has since been demoted within the organization, so he's just like sloppily eating chicken in a parking garage. And Ho himself, who's trying to clean up and go straight, he's got a job driving taxis throughout the city, just trying desperately to escape his past. And I feel like anything else I'm going to say from here on out is also going to sound like it's straight up on the poster for this thing, what is on the poster for this thing? Brothers by blood, enemies by chance, killers by nature. Excellent. So it's a feast for all of the senses. But the plot doesn't let up either. Honestly, they probably could have done the full 2 hours on this thing. Somehow they still managed to fit it into 90 minutes. Somehow it still builds and builds until it breaks. And kind of the whole time you're waiting for them to mend their ways, so we get like all three of them just going ham at the end. But they make you earn it, and they make you wait for it. You know, it's not just that they make up by the, you know, second to third act break and then just spend 30 minutes going crazy. Like, it's within the last 5 minutes, and the last just minute of this movie it's great, like I said. But back to the action, I need to mention one more thing, because basically Chow Yun-fat is he's not necessarily trying to get Ho back into things. He's trying to get him to take revenge on the triads, whereas Ho doesn't even want revenge. He just wants out completely because it's ruined his relationship with his brother, who still doesn't trust him and is suffering at his job because of it. So what Chow Yun-fat does is, of his own accord, go and steal evidence against the new boss, who is Xing, by the way. I'm still not spoiling some things, by the way, but Xing has risen to power and in fact killed the main bad guy. So he's like a bad guy. But Chow Yun-fat goes to steal the evidence on them. He's like steals one of the counterfeiting plates or something like that, and is on his way out of the building with it when the other real John Woo fight of the movie takes place. In fact, has maybe the John Woo shot, and I did put it up front. You'll see it for a second. But Chow Yun-fat is like coming out from behind a corner, and he's found like a dolly, like a warehouse dolly of sorts, and is just laying down sideways as he's rolling across the floor shooting dudes. So tell me that's not from a John Woo movie. And I guess maybe it's the gun fu that you hear about. I'm still not quite sure what to make of that term, but the choreography is obviously different, but I don't mean to say that it was like produced in a vacuum necessarily. You know, there's still a Hong Kong action movie, whether it has kung fu in it or not. Because when I say the choreography is different, what I mean is, like, if this were a Sammo or a Jackie movie, I feel like they've very much like established that, not all of the time, but pulling the camera back and just kind of letting Jackie and Sammo and Yuen-biao do their thing. Like, a lot of the choreography is going to manifest in those people, and the camera just letting those people do their thing. Here it's more like, I don't know if directorial is the right word. It feels like the camera itself is more of an actor, and I don't mean like a screen actor. I mean like a participant in the action, you know, like part of the actual choreography. And I'm not saying it's better or worse, just that it's kind of like almost shifted, I guess. It's almost like the entire movie, the choreography for this entire movie is like the plot and the structure and the execution. I don't know if that pans out. Try it, figure it out. I will say that when this thing came together, it's easy to see how John Woo may have felt like he found his calling. I mean, obviously he's made a lot of different movies, and there's, you know, variations on a theme for sure. And I'm not the guy to ask, because I'm way behind. Like, he's made 46 movies by IMDb's count, you know, which I've seen now like 3 or 4. So I'm just saying, after having watched A Better Tomorrow, which I need to watch Hard Boiled again, but I may very well like better than Hard Boiled, which I think also had comedic elements to it. So maybe some apples and oranges there. But A Better Tomorrow, like, I can see why people, John Woo included, might have thought that this was it, because he did pretty darn good right out of the gate with this thing. So again, how late to the party can I be here on Cinematic every week, every Friday at 8, in fact. So come back next week, where we will do the same for Ringo Lam, who made less movies, I believe, and has since passed, actually, R.I.P. Ringo Lam. But we're going to see what a Ringo Lam movie looks like when Ringo Lam gets to finally make a Ringo Lam movie. So come back next week is what I'm getting at. When we quite possibly do Prison on Fire, I haven't watched it yet, don't know if it gets a little too gnarly. We try to keep it somewhat family friendly around here. So that's the plan as of now. So if you want to participate in that plan, you can always find me at patreon.com/Ryan_runs_, where a measly $2 a month will make you part of the action, so to speak, but also earn my eternal thanks, and we'll show your name right up top.